Hello everyone, our topic this week was requested by all of these lovely people. We'll be going over the fabled Horseman Death from the Darksiders franchise.
So first things first, like all of the riders of the Charred Council, Death is one of the very last of the Nephilim, the only others still living, by the end of his game, Darksiders II, being his brothers and sister horsemen, War, Fury, and Strife. The Nephilim were a race of creatures born from the mingled essences of angels and demons, who, led by the very first of their race, Absalom, tore a path of bloody conquest and destruction across the cosmos for an untold number of years. Their crusade stopped only by the Four Horsemen themselves, who, by all indications, fearing that their own people would forever shatter the balance of creation, made a pact with the Charred Council, the arbiters of the balance in the cosmos, to act as their enforcers. The Charred Council gained 4 powerful enforcers of their will, and the Four Horsemen themselves gained incredible power, as well as a pass for the sins of their people. And the Horsemen's first mission was to wipe their people from the face of reality. For more detail on the Nephilim species overall, check out our video on them here.
Before we go any further, we need to make a specific note of one important piece of information. Most of our information on Death comes from one of 3 sources: his game, Darksiders II, his comics, Darksiders Death's Door, and a novel starring him called Darksiders The Abomination Vault. It has recently come to our attention that the comics and novel are considered largely non-canon. One developer, for example, compares the book to the extended universe from the Star Wars franchise, which was decanonized in recent years, but is still a vast resource from which developers can pull ideas or information they really like. In layman's terms, unless something from the book or the comics is specifically referenced within the actual games, it's considered non-canon. Now, it's also important to know that based upon our research, very little from the novel or Death's comics actually contradicts with the primary canon of the games. So, we'll still be going over them in this video. With all of that out of the way, let's get back to Death.
Death is the eldest of the Four Horsemen and is generally considered the most powerful. According to the novel, he is also among the eldest of his race. Absalom was artificially created first, with others somehow spawned from him or as a result of his existence, and successive generations developed normally. In the novel, Death is numbered among the Nephilim's firstborn, a class of elder Nephilim that appear to have made up the bulk of the Nephilim's upper echelons. Based upon this phraseology, we assume he was one of those Nephilim somehow spawned because of Absalom himself. Like all of the Horsemen, Death has superhuman strength, durability, and incredibly heightened reflexes. Death specifically has the most overtly noted, and thus presumably most well-developed, superhuman durability. Though he can be cut, he does not bleed. He was at one point impaled by a sword of such destructive power that heaven's greatest healers couldn't fully heal the wound dealt to one of their own by the same weapon. While Death himself naturally healed from the wounds he suffered from that same weapon over the course of a few minutes with no outside aid. He was even impaled by War's sword, Chaos Eater, at one point, and seemed almost unaffected, pulling the blade, which was nearly large enough to bisect his torso, from himself casually thereafter, with Strife commenting on the fact that Death was nearly indestructible as Death pulled it out.
Death also possesses potent magical capabilities. From a lore perspective, we would assume he is second only to Fury in this regard, as she has been called a battle mage, but in terms of game mechanics, Death actually possesses a wider array of spell-like abilities in his game than Fury possesses in hers. He is able to enhance his personal combat abilities, such as attack and defense, summon crows to battle for him, or even use necromancy to conjure zombies, summon whirling hurricanes of bone and necrotic energy, or call upon angry souls to feast upon his enemies. He's also been seen using his necromantic power to question the departing souls of the dead. In addition to his magical capabilities, Death is an incredibly skilled melee combatant, able to use a wide variety of weaponry with equal and prodigious skill. Indeed, his preferred weapon, the Harvester, is actually capable of assuming the form of any weapon he desires, most commonly either a very large scythe or a smaller pair of dual scythes. Additionally, Death has been noted to be a skilled craftsman. We know specifically that he has forged 2 things: his weapon, the Harvester, as well as the Nephilim's Respite, which is essentially a reusable healing potion receptacle that he gifted to his sister Fury. Finally, like each of the Horsemen, Death possesses a super mode. The Reaper form transforms Death into a large, skeletally winged Grim Reaper-style creature. This form grants him incredibly enhanced power and durability, as well as limited powers of flight. For more info on his Reaper form, see our video on the Horseman super modes here. Lastly, Death possesses a trusty crow companion named Dust. The 2 souls are linked, and in-game Dust acts as Death's quest guide, flying in the direction of your active quest when so prompted.
Moving on to Death's story. We have to go back to before he became one of the Riders of the Charred Council. Like all of the Horsemen, we know very little about Death's life pre-Horseman. However, we do know this. When the Nephilim first began their crusade across the cosmos, burning worlds in a supposed pursuit of a home, the first stop was the homeworld of creatures called the Ravaim. The Nephilim butchered the Ravaim and then used their remains to create the Grand Abominations, mystical WMDs. The process would normally have been beyond the crafting skill of any of the Nephilim, Death included, and was only made possible by the mystical nature of the Ravaim themselves. For more details on the Grand Abominations, see our video on them here. The important thing to note for us here is that the Grand Abominations, while not all forged by Death himself, were as a whole his brainchild. It was Death's idea to invade the Ravaim homeworld and use them to create the Grand Abominations in the first place. One of very, very few decisions in his long life that he would later come to regret.
Fast forward a while, we don't really know how long, to the Horsemen coming into the service of the Charred Council. The first thing they did was acquire their mounts, their phantom horses, and Death was the first to acquire his mighty steed, not by rank or demand, but by deed, showing the will, courage, and steel of personality required to master a phantom horse before any of the other horsemen had even begun to try, and gifting it with a name: Despair. Skip forward a little more, and we come to the fall of the Nephilim. With his brothers at his side and a host of angels at their back, Death and the other horsemen rode to war with their people, slaying them to the last man. Death himself slew Absalom, the ruler and progenitor of their species, in single combat. As Absalom lay dying in a pool of his own blood, he gave birth to corruption, the inky blackness it would later commonly manifest, swallowing Absalom whole before Death's very eyes, though the horsemen wouldn't understand the full implications of this event until millennia later.
Sometime later, during the novel, Death would play a major role in what came to be known as the Abomination Vault crisis. After his people's destruction, and partially due to wards and protections the Nephilim had already set in place, the Grand Abominations were locked away in a pocket dimension, guarded by and known only to Death himself. The other horsemen having not been privy even to the existence of the Grand Abominations, much less the vault in which the weapons rested, never to be used again. Death told no one, and said nothing, not even to the Charred Council, planning to take the secret of the Abominations, how to use them, and where they were hidden to his grave, which led to unfortunate consequences for Death personally when a rogue angel and maker duo discovered the existence of the Grand Abominations, found a couple of them that had been lost somewhere along the Nephilim's crusade, and then conspired to activate and find the rest so that they could reshape the governance of creation to their liking. Long story short, Death ends up telling the Council and his fellow horsemen about the Abominations, and then he and War set out to take out the Angel and Maker duo, secure the vault, and ensure the Grand Abominations aren't loosed upon the cosmos. Meeting many of the series' key characters along the way, and just generally being awesome. Seriously, if you like the Darksiders series, give the book a read, it's great. Notable moments for Death include fighting an army of constructs alongside the Crowfather, having a verbal pissing contest with Abaddon, many arguments between the horsemen, and Death using his magic at levels we only wish we could attain during his game. All ends well, and Death ensures that no one could ever make a danger of the Grand Abominations again. At least not for long.
Fast forward again an indeterminate period of time, and we find Death, Fury, and Strife being sent out to bring a rogue War to heal after he'd gone a little battle crazy. Their talks quickly devolved into a small skirmish during which War impaled Death, and then Death and Fury worked together to chop off War's arm, with Death telling War to learn from this experience. Technically, these next two events could have taken place in either order, but based upon context clues, we presumed that the events took place in the order we are presenting. So, fast forward to 1722, the only official date we get in the entire series, and Abaddon contacts Death, asking him to take care of a rogue demon for him under the table, because the creature had pieced off to Earth, where, due to the laws of the Council, angels, Abaddon included, were not allowed to tread. Death eventually took the job and tracked his quarry to Earth, only to discover that the demon in question was in fact an angel afflicted with corruption, who, it's heavily implied, started the Marseille Plague of 1722, with further implications being that the plague was in fact also corruption. Death arrived, slew the angel, which, based upon the fact that Earth wasn't swallowed up by corruption in the following centuries, was enough to stymie corruption's expansion, and returned to tell Abaddon the job was done, and that he was certain Abaddon had known it was an angel the whole time, that Death was neither impressed nor amused. Death is then last seen before his game when the Four Horsemen are sent to make the rounds to the forces of heaven and hell and remind them that the treaty between angels and demons created by the Charred Council for the good of humanity was to stand.
Finally, we come to the events of Darksiders II, Death's game. When Death discovered that War was being charged with the crime of starting the apocalypse early and thus dooming humanity to destruction, Death correctly deduced that the charge was bupkis, and set out to clear War's name. He also realized that the council would not be swayed, possibly no matter the evidence supporting War's innocence, and as such instead elected to erase War's supposed crime, the destruction of humanity. Having no idea how to resurrect an entire species, Death sought out the Crowfather, an old one whose entire shtick was collecting knowledge, figuring if anyone knew how to resurrect humanity, the Crowfather would. Upon meeting the Crowfather, the two spoke, with the Crowfather telling Death that it could be done, and even telling Death that the Tree of Life was the key. But before helping Death get there, or giving him more information, the Crowfather demanded that Death take back the amulet Death had given the old one millennia prior. When the Four had been named the Horsemen of the Charred Council, and tasked with the destruction of the Nephilim, the Charred Council hadn't been joking around. Death was given an amulet that absorbed the fallen souls of all of the slain Nephilim, which he wore to battle that day. When the slaughter was complete, he was to see the amulet destroyed, and thus the very souls of the Nephilim wiped from existence. Death had instead gifted the amulet to the Crowfather, who had agreed to keep the amulet safe and secret in return for being able to learn the secrets of the Nephilim from the souls trapped inside. In the ensuing millennia, the angry whispers of the fallen Nephilim appear to have driven the Crowfather mad, and he wanted to get rid of the thing. Death refused to take it back, prompting a fight that ended in the Crowfather dying. But with his last breath, the Crowfather shattered the amulet, burying both its shards and the souls of the Nephilim still trapped within them into Death's chest, causing Death to pass out as he was pulled through a portal of the Crowfather's creation.
Death wakes up in the realm of the Makers, and over the course of the game encounters a colorful cast of characters, both friend and foe, who help or hinder his quest to save War. Along the way, he also learns of the existence and nature of the Tree of Life and Death, as well as the existence and nature of corruption. Briefly, the Tree of Life and Death is a great mythical tree, vaguely reminiscent of Yggdrasil from Norse folklore, in that it connects nearly all of the realms of creation, with portals nestling beneath its branches that can take those who know the way from one realm to another. Additionally, seated inside of the tree, locked behind a mystical door barred by two keys, one held by the angels, the other by the demons, lies the Well of Souls, the center and engine for the reincarnation cycle in the Darksiders universe. It is to the well that Death eventually learns he must go in order to clear his brother's name. Corruption is a sort of cancerous force that eats away at the very fabric of reality. Corruption taints both creatures and the very environment itself, taking hold of and transforming any creature consumed by it until they are eventually driven mad, while also infecting the land with great toxic lakes of ichor, killing off natural life, and even infecting stone, wrapping everything in black, oily tendrils.
After a long and arduous journey across everything from the realms of Earth, the land of the dead, and even demi-hellish and heavenly planes, Death, by this point increasingly frustrated and absolutely done with all of the runaround that seemingly all of existence has been giving him.
Where is the key? Mercy, horsemen! Where is it?
Finally acquires the two keys to the Well of Souls and enters. There he finds that the well itself has been afflicted by corruption, and there he finds the avatar and presumed source of corruption himself, Absalom. Absalom's hatred and outrage at the betrayal and the subsequent slaughter of his people by four of his own, plus any number of other unknown factors, likely including, among other things, his synthetic and mystical nature, had led him to becoming corruption itself upon his death. He would consume and destroy everything. The Horsemen, the Charred Council, and their precious balance be damned.
After a titanic battle, Death eventually emerged victorious, putting the guilt he had long kept, however quietly, for the eradication of his people behind him as he dealt the final blow to Absalom for the second time. This time with no reservations. It was then that the ghost of the Crowfather, who had appeared to guide Death from time to time throughout the game, appeared one final time to tell Death that he had a choice. In the remains of the amulet, buried in Death's very own flesh, lay the souls of the entire Nephilim race. With the power housed therein, Death could do one of two things: bring back his people, the Nephilim, or he could use that same power to return humanity back to life, absolving War of his crimes as Death had originally planned.
Death, with only the briefest pause, chose to save his brother War, and thusly humanity, giving the Crowfather his mask and casting himself into the Well of Souls, feeding the engine of the death and rebirth cycle of creation, and presumably enabling humanity to return to life. Though the exact timing, location, or nature of this resurrection has yet to be specified or explained, Death died, sacrificing himself to the Well of Souls in this process. But, sometime later, War would complete his own quest to clear his name, and in so doing would cause the seventh seal of the Apocalypse to be shattered, reviving all of the horsemen and their horses, and calling them to Earth. Alongside Strife and Fury, Death appeared, alive, on Earth, the Four Horsemen reunited. But what comes next in their story is a tale for a future, and as yet, unreleased game.
And that's basically the story of Death, leader of the Four Horsemen. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like all of these lovely people, and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, let us know in the comments down below.
In the meantime, this has been True
Masters
Masters Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.